Hi, this is Chandler, founder of Culture of Care. And in my episode on the Business Growth Architect show, what I'm going to share and really reveal to you is how to sell without manipulation, aggressive tactics, or feeling salesy. I'm going to show you an upside down sales process that you're not really expecting that's going to change the fundamental way you see sales.
Welcome to the Business Growth Architect Show. I am Beate Gillette. I am the host. I want to welcome you to our globally top 10% ranked podcast, where you will hear from industry experts about the strategies that are working right now to unlock hidden opportunities in any market so that you can grow your authority and scale your impact. And now let's get started with the show.
And welcome back. This is your host, Beate Gillette from the Business Growth Architect Show. Today, we talk about sales. To be very specific, we're talking to Chandler Walker from Culture of Care. Chandler, I'm so excited to talk to you about sales.
Yeah, excited to be here. Excited to talk to you and your listeners about the art of sales and how to do it without being manipulative, aggressive, or sleazy and salesy.
Frankly, I cannot wait to talk to you because I feel like I'm having the most self-serving podcast of all podcasts yet. For somebody who has never heard about you or this idea of Culture of Care that you've developed, will you please introduce yourself and tell yourself what you do and how you help your clients?
Yeah. So my name's Chandler. I grew up with a bipolar mom, which kind of moved me into this modicum of communication. So I had to learn how to communicate with her from a neutral level and not get mad, not step into her feelings and emotions. And it really taught me how to stay neutral in my communication and how to build strong communication and not hold people to what they say and hold grudges and stuff like that as I grew up. And that led me on a med school path, but I got disenfranchised by the system. I felt like my life was giving pills. And so I broke off. And that's what got me into the entrepreneurship and business ownership, was opening up a brick and mortar. And inside that brick and mortar, I did probably 4,000 one-on-one conversations, AKA sales conversations by myself, just to get our process down. And originally I had this philosophy of I didn't want to be aggressive. I didn't want to manipulate people, but I hired sales trainers and they would tell me, Chandler, you've got to go for the close. The objections don't start till the end of the call. That's when the call closed. If they cry, they buy. And I was like, for the love of God, I don't like this. This isn't me. This isn't what I want to do. I'd rather give up than actually sell my soul to do this. So I did what I normally do. And I just reinvented the wheel and did my own thing. And that's kind of how Compassion Conversations and our whole sales process was born. It was born out of my own madness.
The reason I wanted you on the podcast, and I want to just share this with our beehive, is that there is something about sales that I think is shifting significantly right now. That this whole overpresence or the omnipresence of internet marketing that's at every corner trying to sell you something is really pushing how we have to approach sales. Is that a correct statement or a wrong statement?
Yeah, that's totally correct. The world of internet marketing is basically turn on an ad or DM a million people every day and then force them to make a decision. And that's kind of where it ends. And so I think the world of internet marketing has turned sales into a monster, for lack of a better term.
I couldn't agree with you more. So the minute somebody smells that you are having an ulterior motive for connecting with them, as in selling them something, I call, especially the LinkedIn outreach is so bad, I call it showing up on the first date naked. What did I have in my inbox? Oh, I help unhappy women to overcome their unhappiness and then make them happy. So if you want to release your trauma and be more happy, is this something that you're interested in? And if it's not you, hey, can you forward this to like 10 of your friends?
You're like, what is this, MLM?
Exactly. And I'm like, I don't think so. I actually responded. I said, this is so bad that I actually am going to offer you to get on a call with me to help you to fix this, because this is so bad. This is like showing up on a call naked, on a first date naked, that I think it's bad. So what is going wrong here? Let's analyze what people are being taught, what they're thinking, and what the reality is of how their prospect responds.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the first thing is they said happy way too many times in that statement. So you're just like happy burned out by the time you're done reading it. Outside of that, though, what did they do? They came in and they went straight for the kill. And so what are they being taught? They're taught that this is a volume game. DM as many people as humanly possible, copy and paste that, and hopefully people respond. And the problem with that is this is like you're saying, showing up at a date naked. It's also like going to a bar and asking every woman in the bar or every man, whoever you're interested in, to marry you. Eventually, someone might say yes after you go through a few thousand people, but there's a better way to do it. And so when I look at that approach, it's like, okay, well, maybe instead of DMing you that, they could have friend requested you. And instead of getting a DM that sells you something, they could have sent you a quick voice memo. Hey, I really liked what you put on your post where you talked about this. And I thought your podcast was interesting on episode 27. And I thought what you said here was really cool. And then just ended the conversation. No pitch needs to happen. All they did was they gave you a compliment, showed you that they had some interest in what you're doing, and then you can grow and develop a relationship over time. Does that make the relationship take longer? Yes. Could a sale eventually matriculate? Yes. Are you going to build a much stronger network? Yes. So in my opinion, on this side of things, it's a lot better for people who want to build a strong sales process and a strong network.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. So do you think that our listeners that are now listening or watching this episode, that they're clear in differentiating between what is being done to them and what they do themselves? Or
I don't think
disconnect?
I think there's a huge disconnect because I think sometimes we're doing things to other people and we won't even do those things ourselves. We're out there doing that kind of outreach, but then ourselves, we're not sort of internally aligned with what we're actually, our actions and our actions with others. And so I think you have to sometimes reflect on what am I actually doing and what am I telling others to do?
I think that is absolutely correct. And the proof is in the pudding. So if the outreach, the throwing spaghetti at the wall is not working, then stop it. So now I stop it. Now I have no outreach or I don't know what to do. Now I come to you. And I want to actually take you through a scenario that I hear all the time, if that's okay with you.
Of course, let's do it.
So I'm going to call you and I'm going to say, and this is verbatim. I've heard this verbatim at least 50 times. Chandler, please tell me how I'm going to find more clients so I can close them quickly. I don't need to know anything about any strategy, marketing, whatever. Just tell me that and I'll gladly give you my money. What are you going to say?
Yeah, number one, I'm going to say, well, I think we have a little bit of an ego here. If you feel like you don't need to learn, and I call this the art of a challenging leader. So yeah. If you don't feel like you're in a position to learn, if you don't feel like you're in a position to grow and you don't feel like you need anything else, then I think you're going to stay perpetually trapped. And this isn't to say that there's anything wrong with you. This is to say that the best people and the most successful people are the ones who are the most open to feedback and learning and growing. And then what if I do? What if, okay, let's say I run your Facebook ads for you and I give you 1,000 clients. What are you going to do? We just broke your fulfillment. You can't handle that. Then what happens? You just got a bunch of refund requests. Or what if you couldn't close them? So we got you a bunch of prospects, but you couldn't get them through the sales process because you didn't want sales training. And now you didn't close anyone. And now it's my fault though, because I got you the clients, but they were unclosable. So now they're poor quality. So you're putting yourself in this state of perpetual failure. And by putting your ego front and center and saying you don't need anything else, you're basically allowing yourself to fail and giving yourself permission for nothing to work and put yourself in this perpetual cycle of hiring coach after coach after coach after coach and blaming people for it not working for you. But in reality, sometimes you just got to look in the mirror.
I don't think that truer words have ever been spoken in my world, right? I think that it's very easy to say that if something is not working, it's everybody else but you. And then when you have to actually go and start changing the way you do things, I always say, Chandler, change is great as long as you don't have to change anything. And people are
yeah, exactly.
people are super thrilled about change. If other people change, if the world changes, as long as they don't have to change, they're great with change.
Exactly.
So let's say now we've handled this first piece and we said, and what you just did, and correct me if I didn't pick up on this correctly, but what you did is you handled my own objection. You handled my own objection up front, because the next thing I would have said if it didn't work, I would have said to you, your leads suck. They're not the right leads. So did you just pre-empty that objection that you knew I was going to have later on?
Yeah, exactly. So what I do is I kind of figure out where the hole's in on your logic and where your timeline is going to take you, and then just use that to pull back in and show you where you're headed. And so that's forces people to say, well, I guess you're right. What if that does happen? And all of a sudden you instill this doubt in their mind, and then their ego goes to the side, because now they kind of started to respect you and they kind of start to say, okay, well, maybe you're right. Maybe I do need help. Maybe my ego has been front and center. What if I do get all these leads and they're not good, but then what if it's my fault? So all of a sudden they have all these what ifs in their brain. And so what we did was we elicited doubt. We elicited doubt in the fact that they thought that's all they needed, but we created the logic that showed that there's much more behind it.
So you poked a hole into my story that I tell myself that keeps me exactly where I'm at. You talk a lot, Chandler, about cognitive questioning. So will you tell us about what is that? I thought that sales was mainly about having, the right kind of cadence of questions and, make them feel the pain, seeing the future, creating the urgency, the call to action. But where does cognitive questioning come in?
Yeah, good question. So when we look at the idea of cognitive questioning, and when you look at the focus of finding something, the cognitive bias that an individual holds, it's usually hidden deep down behind something that they won't tell you. It's a wall, like a sales resistance wall. So for example, if someone comes in and they say, hey, I want to lose weight. Okay, cool. Well, what makes you want to lose weight? Oh, well, I want to look good in a bikini. Oh, great. Me too. I would love to look good in a bikini. Oh, but why? Why is that important to you? Oh, it's beach season. Why does it matter? Why don't you just walk out on the beach naked? Oh, because I don't want other people to see me. Well, why does that matter? Why do other people matter? Well, I feel embarrassed in my skin. Oh, okay. Well, how long has that been an issue? Since I was a kid. Well, why is that? Oh, because growing up, I always had a weight problem and I got bullied at school. I just took the idea of what the problem is and shifted it and moved it and really helped them understand where the problem came from. And then I tell them, okay, well, maybe it's not even that you want to lose weight. Maybe you need to become comfortable in your own skin, because I can be the first to tell you that if you do lose this weight, you're still not going to be happy with how you look. You're still not going to be okay with where you're at. It's always going to be a perpetual cycle of hate towards yourself. And so I poked holes in the logic and I helped them understand the timeline of how this problem is created and how it's not solved.
So the cognitive questioning then is me as the person that's in the discovery strategy call, not just going through the motion of my prepared questions.
Exactly.
But rather my active listening and hearing and asking clarifying questions as to the origin of it's almost like what I heard. Let me rephrase that. It's almost like what I heard is you like being there with a shovel, right? And digging deeper. And it's like, why is that? And why is that? And why is that? Tell me more. Why is that? Why is that? So what happens when I arrive at this final conclusion? I want to sell her a nutrition program and a fitness program. But now I know that she's had this terrible story of when she was like 5 years old. She was like 25 pounds overweight. She was constantly bullied. How do I take that and connect that back to what I want to sell? Because I think that's where people get hung up. And that's why they're uncomfortable, because now they know the story, but they can't connect it back. How do we connect it back?
Yeah. So then what you have to say is, okay, and this is sort of a moral dilemma some coaches run into as well. It's like, can you solve that? If this person has this deep-seated problem that they've suffered from as a child and they see themselves as a horrible person, that's not going to be saved by them losing weight. So now it's a moral dilemma as a coach. And this is an important part of what I teach. It's the ethics of it. Do I have the capabilities to solve this? And if not, then it's okay to say no. I know you don't want to say no sometimes because people want to make money. But at the same time, if you bring that person in and they lose weight and they still hate themselves, you didn't do anything. You just perpetuated the cycle. So you become a cog in the machine. And so what you need to do is you need to think about what you offer. So when you're in the weight loss world, if you're just offering fitness and nutrition and weight loss plans, you're a commodity. So you need to become better, and you need to recognize and understand where these deep-seated problems come from. Why do people try a million different diets? Because they have a pattern of overeating that probably is stemmed from being forced to eat their whole plate as a kid. So now we have to recognize, okay, I need to put in some sort of mindset or mental health curriculum in my program that can help these people come to their truth and sort of help them solve it. For example, when I was building my first brick and mortar, we recognized that there was 7 pillars of wellness. There was mental health, social health, sleep, nutrition, fitness, habits, and wealth. And we had to install those. We started off with just the nutrition and fitness component, but I recognized that those weren't enough. And so I partnered with a doctor in cognitive behavior therapy or doctor in psychology. And we built this curriculum, this program that was designed to help solve these problems. It wasn't designed to diagnose and treat, but it was designed to help work through in a coaching environment these issues that came about as a result of these problems with people trying to lose weight. So if you as a coach at this point, now you can create a custom pitch. And so it's like you move to the pitch. It's like, hey, because you said that this happened, because you said that you wanted to lose weight, but we figured out that this is a thing that's sort of associated with you looking in the mirror and really not being happy with who you are. And what we can do is what I call the brain code rewire. And so this is where we help you rewire your thoughts and your brain code and your feelings to start finally looking in the mirror and being happy with who you see on the other side. So I'm moving myself to be able to pitch that specific component. I don't even need to pitch the fitness, the nutrition, the weight loss. I can add that and include that as part of what I do, but I need to help them solve the real problem. Otherwise, I'm just another coach saying, saying, yeah, whatever you just said, I don't care, but here's what I do.
You do something that I have heard many, many times is that this discovery or strategy conversation by itself has to provide value. Yes? No?
Yeah, absolutely. And the value here, a lot of people think the value is like, hey, let me coach you. But the value is helping people understand the deep-seated and deep-rooted problems behind why they've failed. It's like business owners. They'll come in and say, I just need leads. Like we talked about a minute ago. Okay, what makes you think you need leads? Well, if I get leads, I'll grow. Oh, okay. Well, let's work through what your fulfillment looks like. What do you mean? I'm the only one doing it. Oh, okay. So what would happen if we got 1,000 leads tomorrow? Well, I wouldn't be able to manage it. Okay, so maybe we don't have just a leads problem. Maybe we have a business problem. We have a problem in terms of structure. So we need to help people recognize and understand where the problem is and help bring that front and center. Because now what happens is they think the problem's leads or they think the problem's weight loss, but you help them shift and recognize the problem is much bigger and much more deep-seated. And then they can say, okay, well, what do I do now? I know I have a lot more than I thought that I needed to solve. And you've removed them from this cycle of perpetual failure. Because guess what will happen with most coaches? They'll come on and say, I need leads. Coach will sell them, get them leads. They'll fail. They'll do it again and again and again and go through coach after coach after coach. So it's our responsibility, in my opinion, in this process to remove and reduce or get rid of that sales cycle that they're stuck in.
Mm-hmm. I love that a lot. Let's talk about this more in just 1 minute, right after this message.
Are you looking for the hidden opportunities for you in this market? Or are you simply wanting to figure out what is your unique differentiation factor that makes clients want to work with you and not your competitors? If this resonates, I want to invite you to go to uncoverysession.com and schedule your 15-minute complimentary uncovery session with one of our business growth advisors that will take you through what your number one business growth blocker is, what you can do to remove it, and what your very best next step should be. And now let's get back to the show.
Welcome back. This is Beate Gillette with Chandler Walker talking about sales, but a much more compassionate way of selling. You just said something very interesting. You had said that there's a difference between just being a coach or being, what I heard, a trusted advisor. But if you're a trusted advisor, you may jeopardize the sale. But what's the play here long term? Is it that this is for people who are more conscious? Is it for people who have a deeper desire to actually make a change? Is it the only way to sell? Like, help me figure out what this is, because most people say, I need the leads, then I need a closing technique, I need money in the bank, I need to take my family on a vacation, I need to pay for private school, I want to support my church. That's kind of where I'm at. But you're talking about something much, 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 much deeper. Why does going deeper matter?
Yeah, good question. So here's what, at the end of the day, what this does. This maximizes your client success rate. And so you have to decide as a coach, are you going to be successful or are you going to be a revolving door? If you're a revolving door, this thing isn't going to last. So you're not going to be able to go on vacation. You're not going to be able to put your kids in that private school because you're going to end up on that cycle of consistently being a monster who has to produce leads, but loses them right out the back end. And so the reason we approach sales in this way is to bring the right people in who are going to not only stick with our program initially, but continue to buy from us long-term because we sold them exactly what they needed. We solved the problems that they actually needed to be solved. We didn't just allow them to be in that perpetual cycle of failure. And so when we look at the logic of the situation, it's not about being conscious or a good coach or a bad coach or make money or not make money. It's about your client success rate. And that's exactly what turns into money long-term for you.
Yes, yes, yes. I think that there is a lot to what you just said. It's a real significant shift in the way you approach it. I don't know how you feel about this, but I want to bring something up that's really an issue for me. And that is this idea of funnel hacking. So God bless the people who have figured this out, right? And they throw obscene amount of money at ads to get people to go to a proven funnel with a certain conversion, click through whatever rate. Personally, it gives me anxiety. I feel when I do something like that, I feel like I'm lying because it's, that is to generate something where there's a large number of people going through the process in the hopes that a small percentage is going to stick and then, sort of whatever happens. So what I'm hearing you say, though, is that in the sales model that you are teaching your clients, there's got to be a system in there. So take us through the system so we can understand what the system behind this compassionate conversation is.
Yeah, basically what compassion conversations comes down to is it's number one, become a challenging leader. So the way I've challenged you in our conversations so far and talking about how we change and shift paradigms and beliefs. Number two is learning to achieve level 5 listening. When you think about level 5 listening, level one is I'm just ignoring you. You're talking and I'm looking at the back wall doing something else. Level two, I'm on my phone and I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm not paying attention to you. Level three, I'm responding, but the only reason I'm responding is because I want to have a say. It's like a political conversation. All I care about is my response to you. Level four, I'm responding, we're going back and forth, I'm listening and paying attention, I'm engaged. But level five is empathetic listening. So that's establishing that level of listening to where I'm listening, I'm actively thinking about scenarios, I'm actively thinking about you, I've removed my ego from the situation, and I'm focused on problem solving. And so that's the second one. Then the last one we look at is just removing these objections, removing objections before they become a problem and dealing with them front and center.
Talk to me about that. So how do I know what objections are coming up? Should I know what objections are coming up?
In my opinion, you should. In the coaching world, what objections are going to come up? It's going to be money. It's going to be spouse, time. I want to think about it. All those things. And when you think about time and I want to think about it, those are solved early. So I want to think about it. Okay, well, let's remove this objection early on. So where are you at in the process? And as I ask these questions, it becomes less about where are you at and are you ready to make a decision and how much pain are you in and where is the real problem lying? And then once we figure that out, are you ready to solve it? We solve that in discovery. When we look at the idea of money, it doesn't have to be this battle at the end where you drop this magical price that nobody knew was coming and then you fight with them for an hour about it. You move it to discovery and you just ask them, how much do you make? What does your credit situation look like? Are you buried in debt? Because then I can make an ethical decision as to whether or not this is going to be a good decision for them. And what do you have left over at the end of the day? Because then at the end, I can say, hey, because of your financial situation, this is what I think makes sense. Or, hey, I think because of your financial situation, this would be a bigger burden than you need right now. And if you ask these questions from a place of love, care, and concern, people are much more likely to respond. So instead of saying, hey, how much do you make? They're going to be like, wait, what? Why would you ask me that? It's, hey,
none of your business, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to say, hey, so I really want to uncover one of the biggest stressors in life with you, and that's money. And so in order for me to decide if I can make an ethical consideration as to whether or not you should be part of what I'm doing, finances have to be part of this. And so I just want to know if it's okay and if you're comfortable with chatting with your finances with me. So I drop my tone, I talk to them from a place of love, care, and concern, and they're much more likely to respond and engage.
I think that's an important piece because when it comes to money or putting, there's two pieces about money. Number one is asking people to give you their money. Number two, it is you putting a number on your value and then saying it with confidence and without that awkwardness, like you're kind of like taking advantage of someone. From the perspective of my mindset, as I'm going into a conversation with someone, what can we tell our audience, the Beehive? What is the mindset that I need to have when I pick up the phone or go on a Zoom call? Where do I start centering myself?
Yeah, good question. So what I call this the art of detaching from the need to sell. And when you think about typical sales conversations, it's like push, 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 go for the close. And what are you doing in that situation? You're chasing someone. What does someone do when you chase them? They run away. Think about dating. If I text someone nonstop when I first meet them, they're going to run away as fast as possible because I'm creepy and I won't leave them alone. But if I just text normally and I'm not a weirdo, they're going to come back. And because now it's a game of cat and mouse and chase. And so when I approach the sales conversation, I need to detach myself from the need to sell and actually install the desire to serve, even if you're in a position to where you need to make money. Because if you want money and you chase someone and you're needy, they're going to run away and you're going to make no money. And so the way I center myself in this process is I really like an exercise we teach our clients called leaves on a stream. And so we'll just sit there before the call, maybe 10 minutes before, and close our eyes and imagine that there's leaves floating on the stream. And we recognize that we have feelings in this process. So I'm feeling anxious. So I put my feelings of anxiety on the leaf. I don't fight it. I don't think about it. I just watch it pass by. And then say I'm feeling nervous. Okay, I put my feelings of nervousness on the leaf and I watch it pass by. And I just let myself sit there with the thoughts. I allow them to come and go. Because if I fight them, they come back full force just as hard. So I allow them to come and go. I put them on the leaf. If they come back, they go right back on the leaf. And I just let myself sit there and focus and work through this. So that way, when I get on the call, I'm in a state to where I'm sort of neutral. I'm comfortable with myself. I'm comfortable with my emotions, and I'm comfortable in the moment.
I love that. This reminds me so much of a Sikh meditation technique called Satnam Rasayan, where you just sit and you take in the sensations, but you give nothing meaning. You sit there, you breathe, and you go, my nose itches. That's it. There's no meaning. It just itches. I'm hearing a bird outside. There's a bird outside. My knee hurts. It's a little uncomfortable sitting in this position. Well, my knee hurts. So you give nothing any meaning. So it reminds me of a neutralization technique to not give any emphasis to any particular thought, because what's happened here cognitively or psychologically. And I'm asking this. So I'm going to give all of you listeners, I'm going to give you a little backstory, because I'm building a sales team and my nervous system is on fire. I'm making mistakes like it's almost laughable, but I can tell that I'm hitting an unbelievable amount of resistance to the very change I said I was going to make. I feel like everything I do is not working. I've had, honestly, a couple of freak out moments. So I think a lot of people, when they go on these calls to make these important, often big ticket conversations, right? To have these calls and have these conversations, have anxiety about that. Where is it coming from? And what do we do about this? I mean, you said give it no meaning. The anxiety is like floating away on the leaf. But why am I feeling the way I'm feeling?
Yeah, good question. I think the way you're feeling stems from the desire to want to help and the non-desire to want to sell on these conversations and the fear of getting rejected. Ultimately, as humans, I think one of the biggest fears we have is that fear of rejection. What if they say no? What if I sound like a jerk? What if I sound salesy? What if, what if, what if? And so what I like to do in these statements, because these start to compound in our heads. So it's like, what if, what if, what if? It's like that hangover meme where the guy has the numbers all over the place. So what I do is I put yeah, but statements behind it. And so when we think about that, it's like, well, what if I'm a jerk? Yeah, but what if I'm not? What if I help this person? What if I don't make the sale? Yeah, but what if I do? So all of a sudden now you're combating your own internal thoughts and beliefs that aren't working. And now you're like, I don't know which one to think. And it sort of moves you into a state where you have to analyze both situations, both the what if, the bad, and then the yeah, but, the good. So now you're like, okay, and then I tell people, okay, now that you have the yeah, but statements, put the negative and the positive next to each other, put the what's likely to happen, put the worst case, the best case, and what's likely to happen. And they'll be like, worst case, I am a jerk. Best case, I enrolled this person and I changed their life and I changed my own life and I make money. What's likely to happen? We'll probably have a great conversation. And if I can help them, I'll probably enroll them. And so all of a sudden the yeah, buts force them to actually critically analyze what's happening.
You're talking about, let me see if I can sum this up properly. So you're talking about just taking a deep breath before I go in these conversations, getting myself in a position where I am not worried about making the sale, but I'm focusing on having this kind of exploratory conversation to see, can I help this person and what does this person even need? But this almost doesn't sound just like a strategy to me. This sounds like a fundamental change in approach. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, I would say that's true, because it's like a strategy is something you do and then you stop doing it. When you start thinking about this way, it becomes a method and a modicum of communication.
Mm-hmm.
So you communicate to prospects this way. You communicate to clients this way. It allows you to challenge clients who are going through roadblocks and allows you to say, okay, well, this is where we're at, but what about this? And you start really thinking about learning how thoughts and beliefs are organized and how the modicum of beliefs are created and ultimately how to shift and change that. So it changes the game in the way you speak on podcasts, the way you speak on stage, the way you speak with prospects. And all of a sudden you speak in a way that comes off so well-defined, confident, and real that people want to respect you. They want to believe in you and they want to follow you. It builds and establishes you as a leader.
Which is completely counterintuitive to the soapbox. Because, I'm going to give you an example. It's interesting that you just mentioned podcasts. So I had somebody who was applying to be on the podcast. And then I asked this person what they were good at, what sort of stood out, and what the strategy was they wanted to share. And instead, they proceeded to tell me on the proprietary system and how good they were, how long they've been doing this. And is the ego, or is our desire to be liked and prove our value in the way of allowing the conversation to go where it naturally should be going?
Yeah, absolutely. Because think about it as humans. What do we like to do most? Talk about ourselves. And so you ask a question and I want to go on a diatribe for 3 hours about myself, my accomplishments, what I did, because guess what it does? From my own ego and my own vantage point and viewpoint, it makes me sound better. Now, all of a sudden, like, yeah, I just told Mr. Prospect how awesome I am, or Miss Podcaster how amazing I am. And so I'm legit going to get on this show because I do everything right. But in reality, what you did was you approached the concept from your own ego. You didn't approach the concept from what you actually needed, from what the other party actually needed.
100%. And I perceived it as combative, ended up with this person telling me that they thought, as if I were a good podcaster and I knew how to ask the right questions, that I should arrive at the information that I desire in my podcast. And that was the point where I said, we're not a fit, because I have no desire to go down that road. So I think that what you're saying is very, very important. I want to make sure that we have driven this point home, because I do believe that there is, as I said very early in the podcast today, there is a fundamental shift in how sales is changing because of all the bad marketing and this quantity over quality connection. And if you want to stand out, it is deeper, not wider.
Exactly. And that's the case. It's, if you just try to get everything, you get nothing. If you go deep and really create a fundamental understanding, that's when you get everything.
What do they say? When you chase two monkeys, you get none.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for somebody who's now listened to this and goes like, holy smoking mackerel, I got it all wrong, or I seriously need help, where do we send them? Where can they go to find help from you?
Yeah. So what I have is the simple 3-step strategy that you can use to sell without manipulation, aggressive tactics, and feeling salesy. Typically, I used to send people to a landing page, but at this point, I like to connect with people socially. So if you want that, go to Instagram.com/Chandler_SAF and just DM me the word compassion conversations. And if you can't spell that, if you lose track of what you're doing, just DM me the word I heard you on a podcast and I'll send it over to you. But then I'll send over the guide on the simple 3-step strategy on how to sell without manipulation, aggressive tactics, or feeling salesy. And like I just talked about, I'm coming from the place of what you need, not what I'm trying to sell you.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. It's been a really great conversation. Couldn't have come at a better time. I appreciate your time and your honesty and your candidness as to get real when you sell and make it about. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's super important. Like I said, I started this thing for my own madness. So I understand how hard it is and how much it sucks to feel like you're not doing what you're aligned with. And so everything I built came from the real reason why and the real problems we have. And so I get it.
I appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you so much. There you have it. I appreciate you all listening. Please go ahead and maybe share this interview with one person who can handle a little bit of help with sales. And thank you so much. And until next time, this is your host, Beate Gillette, and goodbye.
Thank you for listening to or watching the show. We are so excited that you're here, and we are very grateful for you. Now it's our turn to ask you for help. Please do share this episode with one other person that needs to hear what we were talking about today. If there's any question you have about business, please do reach out to us and let us know. And don't forget to schedule your complimentary uncovery session at uncoverysession.com, where one of our business growth advisors will help you to figure out what your number one business growth blocker is in only 15 minutes. And that's it for us today. Until next time.